So let me introduce Rafael M. Lopes, MBA, is a digital health product strategist and innovation leader with more than 25 years of experience. Um, Launching digital products and so creating solutions using AI, structured product strategy, and modern innovation frameworks. His mission is to empower clinicians. Oh, my thing is acting up. And make them builders of future of healthcare, not just observers of it. Like I used to say, either you drive the AI bus, you sit in the AI bus. If you're not getting on the bus, you'll be run over by the bus. So, welcome. Welcome, Rafael. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Yuli. Um, that's a great analogy. So uh, really grateful to Yuli and the whole Innovator MD team for hosting our session today, and for allowing me some time to share some of my experience with AI and vibe coding in the healthcare space. Thank you to the folks in the audience. It's nice to see some familiar faces. Alan, Nate, we're gonna be talking soon, and some new faces. Stephanie, your work in service. I'm really intrigued with what you're doing. Hopefully this will be of use to you in some of the work that you're doing, and everybody else on the call. So, um, in product development and in life, it's often really helpful to ask why. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about my why. In 2020, I was recruited to build the digital strategy for a healthcare startup that was funded by City of Hope. It was called Access Hope. And City of Hope is one of the leading NCI cancer institutes in Southern California. Access Hope was a startup that they created, and then partnered with other NCI organizations across the country, to offer an employer service. And the service would allow the employers, their City of Hope and Access Hope clients, to offer support to their employees and their families who are going through a cancer journey, providing them support, guidance, and more importantly, second opinions for their initial treatment plan. And so Access Hope has led to 90% of those second opinions have led to recommendation changes. This is improving healthcare outcomes and really saving lives. So this is why improving healthcare with involving clinicians, I feel is really important. I've been a part of that. And when I was on the team, I partnered with the clinicians, the entire clinical team, to really redesign the operational workflow that was usually taking about 2 to 3 weeks to assemble all the case summaries and all the healthcare and medical record history into a summary. And cancer doesn't wait. So 3 weeks is a long time. Um, Through that work, we were able to transform that process and take what used to take about 3 weeks to about 15 minutes using a digital approach. So today, in fact, I woke up to some really amazing news. Access Hope announced a huge milestone. They have now surpassed serving 10 million members nationwide. I think that's pretty incredible. That was a really small number when I was there. So this is why I do the work that I do. I'm really passionate about helping clinicians who are closest to patients and who know how things work in the real world, to help them innovate. It's good for all of us since we're all patients at one time or another in our lives. So allow me to share with you a little bit more about my background, where I learned some of these hard lessons. So as Uli said, I'm a digital product innovator and strategist for about 25 years. 15 years I spent in financial services, and a little bit of time in agriculture, and then moved to healthcare about 10 years ago. I worked with global brands like Toyota and Citibank and small companies as well. I've launched over 60 products. I think I'm sure it's more than that by now. And I help companies to reach millions of users and generate millions of dollars in revenue. In healthcare, I started my own healthcare startup back in 2012, before the Uberization of services. It was a caregiver matching marketplace. I'm not a clinician and I'm not an engineer either. I'm a business guy, a strategist. So I had to convince in 2012, I had to convince an engineer that had a little bit of free time to help me build my product then. We'll come back to that later. Um, I've also worked for organizations like Tenet Healthcare, Conifer Health, working with doctors and nurses to create and improve population health systems. Um, I'm advising healthcare startups through Founder Institute, a technology platform, accelerator. Apologize for the noise if you're hearing some noise. There's tremendous noise, like maybe a rocket flying overhead.
We don't hear, but are you
Okay,
sharing your slides or anything?
no, not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Okay. So and now I'm a fractional digital health consultant and strategist and a coach and a trainer. And I'm doing this work in the US and I'm just expanded to Latin America. They've got a huge private healthcare sector that really could use some help. So I share my background not to impress you, but really to impress upon you that digital health innovation can make a huge difference to better outcomes for patients and their families and to the overall health system. The healthcare industry made a mistake many years ago when EMRs were first introduced. They were built as financial tools to maximize billing, right? And you all know the pains that we've all lived through because of that. So I hope that today and the physicians and clinicians and nurses and therapists of today can create solutions that are patient facing, more human, and can create better solutions for all of us. So I'm honored to have your attention today to share some of these best practices and lessons. I'll share some prepared remarks, a little bit of background around using AI tools and vibe coding. And then, as Uli said, we'll take a quick bio break and then come back, and then we can actually do a demonstration and using some of the tools that I use today, and we can have a more in-depth conversation then. So let me share some some slides here. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so a little bit of a disclaimer, disclosure information, which is required sometimes for CE credits. Some of my training is going to be CE certified soon, and so I'm preparing for that. So I'm the founder of Bold Digital Health and creator of Bold Digital Health, builddigitalhealth.com workshops. Let's see. The intent of today's session is to share with participants how to identify meaningful business or clinical problems worth solving, how to assess demand and feasibility early, how to prototype and test potential solutions responsibly, and how to reduce risk before investing significant time or capital, and how to leverage AI-based tools to quickly prototype and build early digital health products. What we'll cover today. So first, we're going to dive into strategic product thinking, what it is and why it's important. We'll talk about vibe coding, what it is and what it's not, and how it can be used, why I think this matters for clinicians today and other innovators. I'm going to show you some examples and some features of what some of the vibe coded experiences and products that you can build, what type of features they can have. Um, I'll share some practical implementation tips of using AI and vibe coding tools, and then we'll break and come back for the working session. All right. So why do startups fail? So nearly half of startups fail because they're building solutions without a real pain to solve. So um, there's a Nobel Prize winning scientist, Daniel Kahneman, who in 2002 won a Nobel Prize in economics for proving that humans are not rational decision makers. We avoid pain twice as hard as we pursue gain. And that means that your product idea needs to solve a real pain, not just offer a nice improvement to how things work today. There's a wide field of research in this space called loss aversion. And in 2023, more recently, there was a behavioral science study that found that the pain of losing something we already have is actually 3 times stronger than the potential of gaining something. So there's lots of data to back this up. So the recommendation here is look for a distinctive um, painkiller, not just a vitamin. So efficiencies versus losing sleep, right? Focus on those things that are keeping your customers, your users from sleeping. Um, Solutions and shortcuts. So shortcuts are really vitamins. Solutions that can solve those real pains are really what you want to look for. And think about if your idea for a product, if it was realized, if it disappeared, would it be impossible or just inconvenient to do that type of work? So really look for those painkillers. One strategic way to make sure you're thinking about those real painkillers is to take a product development approach, which is called product mindset. I like to call it product mindset. And so it really is taking a strategic product development approach and mindset to building your product. Here are the core 4 concepts. Now, there's a lot more information, to think about behind this, but just at a really high level summary, strategic product development means really understanding your customer or your patient, whoever your user is, as deeply as you can, including their motivations, like their pain points, their environment that they work in, defining the problem, right? And again, we're looking for those painkiller problems, identifying the journey that the user goes through as they have the problem and maybe have gotten to some alternative solutions, just so that you can see how your solution is going to close some gaps or maybe improve that journey. And then begin to build and test and iterate. Some of the essential product strategy artifacts that I advocate for when taking a product strategy mindset are starting with a product vision. And I see many entrepreneurs and innovators really skip this step. Doesn't take very long, but it's a really great way to level set yourself and your team on what the outcomes are for your product. Working on target user personas. So there's a variety of templates out there. They can all work, but here's where you really begin to define like an archetype, an actual patient or user, and what their life is like. And this is helpful for you and the team to always come back to that and measure and compare and think about your product features and your outcomes, and to make sure that they're always serving those personas. And I recommend starting with maybe 1 to 3 at the beginning. The other thing that is really useful is that customer journey map that I mentioned is going through the entire process, the entire flow, and especially looking for where there are handoffs between systems or between people or between different connection points in the system. That's typically where things fall apart. That's also where the magic happens. If you're able to close some of those dots or some of those gaps and create a more seamless experience along the way. So the number one key recommendation when thinking about taking a product mindset, as it relates to using AI tools specifically and vibe coding, is really perfecting your product requirements document. So short for PRD. This is pretty common terminology that we use in the product development space. You may not have heard of a PRD before. Some of you I know have, but this is a really great starting point for beginning to design your product when you're using some of the AI tools. All right, let's talk about what is vibe coding. So think of vibe coding as just in natural language, describing what the capabilities and functions of the product that you want to build are. Um, right? You don't need to speak in engineering language. Natural language is sufficient. So I think all of us, clinicians, even clinicians that do not have business training or engineering training, now with the power of AI and vibe coding tools can really effectively build some really powerful experiences just by just being able to describe them. So that's the beauty of vibe coding. It uses natural language to replace the traditional coding. The AI behind the scenes does the thinking for you in terms of creating kind of what you might have heard of as the tech stack or the technology behind it, even doing some design for you, and really allowing you to rapidly iterate and immediately see something on the screen that you and others can react to. It really allows you to focus on the outcomes rather than on engineering syntax. And it blends what used to be, not too long ago, low code platforms. So these are things like you might be familiar with, like a Wix or a Squarespace, which allows users to easily build websites by moving and dropping different widgets to now very robust AI capabilities that can build much more sophisticated and robust applications just by speaking and describing those capabilities. So the real benefits of vibe coding now is, again, rapid prototyping, allowing you to quickly sketch and begin to get feedback by interactively building. In the past, um, product development used to take a really long time because innovators like me would have to define all the requirements upfront and then give them to an engineer, and then we would work together to refine them even more in a document, and then turn over those specifications to an engineer. They would go build it. It might take 6 months or it might take a year to build something. And by that time, technology has changed and even the business needs have changed. So with vibe coding and using some of these iterative approaches, you're able to more immediately learn, refine your product as you go by having access to the output and being able to bring in patient feedback, customer feedback as you're building. And it really creates this creative problem-solving environment, which is really effective. So it enables ideation, experimentation, validation, and delivering some value, even or small value at the beginning. It helps validate that idea before you invest a lot more time and money. So what vibe coding is not? It's still new. We're still early. And particularly for us non-engineers, right? We don't know what's happening in the background as much. I'm not an engineer, so I know that there are some folks on the call today that are engineers, so they can be pretty dangerous in terms of them knowing what's happening behind the scenes. That's dangerous in a good way, I mean. Um, but for us, we just have to go into this prepared that it is not a complete replacement for experienced developers. When it comes time to building a robust, production ready, scalable application, What I'm advocating for at this point is to use AI and the vibe coding tools to accelerate the way you're thinking about your product and conceptualizing an initial prototype, or even in many cases, a functional early product that can scale to some level, but not to a huge level. We're not quite there yet. It's also not fully autonomous, right? You start with some conversation and description of what your product is, but it takes iteration and constant manipulation and revision and experimentation to move you along. It's not perfect. As we all know, AI hallucinates. So there are AI models that are driving some of these tools behind the scenes. It makes mistakes. So it's important always to provide as much context as you can because it will help the models understand your goals and the outcomes that you're looking for. Um, but it's also important to test and to check with what's going on. And it's not just for engineers, like I said, right? I'm not an engineer. I know some clinicians that have built a business using low code and now vibe coding tools to build products that are in production, generating revenue. I heard somebody make the statement the other day that speed isn't a luxury anymore, it's a survival skill. So, like Uli said with his metaphor about being run over by the AI bus, I think it's really true. So, the way product development is happening today, there isn't time anymore for 3 months to write a specification document or build something new. Um, with these tools, it really is critical to create something immediately in front of an audience, a user, to get some feedback because that's where you're able to get that refinement and move closer towards a product market fit. So product market fit is this elusive thing that all of us product innovators are looking for, where we have completely figured out who our customer is, what their killer pain is, and have designed a solution to solve that killer pain. So today for physician entrepreneurs, speed to market is important, cost efficiency, investor and partner expectations if you are going to be building something that you're going to put in front of investors, and also the ability to have some independence and control, meaning you can do a lot more on your own with some of the vibe coding tools than you ever have in the past without needing to invest in engineers. So I have, through the work that I've done with Founder Institute and advising some of those early stage tech startups, um, I have talked to multiple startups of physicians and other clinicians that have spent 15, 20, $50,000 to build something without having done some of this early validation work first. And so sometimes their product dies or they continue to spend for years without really having proven that product market fit. And now with vibe coding tools, it really is so much easier and pretty critical to do that in order to save yourself a headache and money and get to market with a product sooner and in a more cost efficient way. Now, what can you build and why? So I'll show you some examples, but the opportunities I think are endless. Patient education and lead magnets, where you can deliver more value to your patients or other stakeholders in your network. Um, I would say basic clinical decision support or patient-facing tools that also are extending some value to patients and partners, always considering HIPAA requirements, right? And so although there are some tools now, there are some frameworks that will allow you to build something in a HIPAA compliant way. Some of the basic tools that I'll be talking about today for folks that are just getting started are not HIPAA compliant, right? And so the level of security isn't there to use PII in some of these tools. So the goal of today's presentation, again, is to help you understand how you can jump in and begin to prototype and test some concepts without PII. Also, I feel that they're really useful as thought leadership artifacts to help you maybe highlight some of your experience or even to build some basic applications like symptom checkers or health assessments or maybe some calculators. It's great that you can use these tools to build some of your new skills and make sure that you're on that AI bus. Maybe build something for your practice, like intake forms or some sort of care plan generator concept that is supported by AI in the background, or something around scheduling automations. And it's a really great way to differentiate and stay relevant as the industry continues to be competitive. Here are some quick examples of some of the features of some products that you can build. So the first one is an e-commerce site. So I included it, even though this is a healthcare audience, because some physicians might have some products that they want to sell. These tools allow you to build something custom without using some of the low-code tools like the Wix and the Squarespaces of the world. They include hosting, and so sometimes it just makes more sense to build something very custom for you. It includes the hosting, plus it gives you the opportunity to build other things and experiment with your monthly subscription instead of just paying for, say, a Wix or a Squarespace, which limits your access or bills you like by website. So I think that's one of the cool features of some of the vibe coding tools. Um, you can have some basic command and control experience building something like that. Um, there's a visual edit capability for all the tools that allows you to save some credits. So like many AI tools, they're based on usage of credits. And so some of the capabilities within all of the tools that I use allow you to do a visual edit, make some quick sort of text changes on the fly without charging you at the same rate for entering a command. And we'll do some of that in the workshop session later. And all the tools allow you to set up either temporary domains or if you want to connect your custom domain, you can do that as well as upload your exact images, or some of the tools will create their own images for you. The second one, Loving Conversations, is a tool that I created. Um, uh, really, I'm gonna admit that sometimes I have used AI to help me have a difficult conversation with my partner. Um, and so this particular tool, Loving Conversations, has an AI supported chatbot, and it helps as a coach to help create sort of the framing and the context. You give it the framing and the context of a conversation, and it will create a script for you, and then it will allow you to speak into the application, and then the system will score the conversation and give you some recommendations. So that is possible with some of these tools. Compare Carefully is a tool that I use for myself when I was selecting my dental plan at the end of the year. So it was taking too long to compare. So as an independent consultant, right, I have to pay for my own healthcare, and so I had to compare between different dental plans. And so what I decided to do is build this app where I would upload a PDF of the summary of benefits that which is all consistent between all of them, and then give it some criteria, sort of select different criteria that was important to me, sort of a balance between price and flexibility. And then the AI agent behind the scenes was able to compare between all the documents and give me a recommendation and the rationale for why. And it also was the first time that I integrated Stripe payments because I think I'm going to maybe promote this to others because I think it is a real pain point. And then Care Connect is A tool that I cloned from another tool that I helped a friend build for their practice. Um, and it's a tool to help physicians better engage with their patients. So it was generated from a PRD. I'll show you the PRD later. It's got contact form. It's got bidirectional messaging capabilities between the user, maybe the coach or the patient, and the provider or the coach. And then it's got some project or client management sort of capabilities within it as well. So those are just some high-level examples of some of the things that I've built. All right. So some quick tips here at the end. Pro tips to avoid wasted effort and money. So first, start small and iterate fast. Your first project, I think, should not take you more than 2 to 3 hours max. Often it's going to take you less, even for newbies. Build one feature completely before adding additional complexity, because we don't want to confuse the AI model, and really provide as much context, like I said before. Prove that that concept works before expanding the scope of the product. And prove it with small data sets. So functionality in this case is more important than aesthetics. I'm a perfectionist, and so this was something that when I started using AI tools, I needed to really manage for myself. So it's more about getting the tool to build the out and deliver the outcome that you're looking for than the aesthetics. The aesthetics can come later. Number two, be really specific with your prompts. So vague requests produce vague, non-functional output. So describe exact behaviors, the expected inputs, right? All the context, the expected outputs, even the edge cases. The more business or clinical context that you can provide, and the detail, including screenshots of other websites that you would want to clone or that you like the design of, or text from one of the LLMs, or some brochure or website that you've seen that you like. You can have the vibe coding tools mirror that when they build something for you. So this is especially true as the application complexity increases. Was there a question? I'm almost done. Okay. Number three. Um, so vibe coding credits can be used up really, really quickly. So that was one lesson when I jumped in. So using some of the text editor functions and the chat or plan mode is really helpful. And I'll show that to you in a little bit. And then the other thing that I think has been a real game changer to sort of saving my credits are using a companion LLM tool. So I started with ChatGPT. I'm now, like many others, I think, migrating to Claude as my design and strategy sort of third brain consultant. So I use that additional tool often to help me augment some of the work that I'm doing in the vibe coding tool in order to save my credits. And I'll show you how to do some of that. And then number four, test early and often. Don't wait until you're done. Test every little iteration as you go. Check the components as you build them, and really test the complete workflows as you're going along. There is a capability to roll back or revert. Doesn't always work perfectly, so use that with caution. Smaller bugs are easier to fix than waiting until the end. And just make sure that you understand how you're describing what you want and what you've said in the past so that you can roll back or recreate in the future. And number five, know when to stop. So what I mean here is perfection is the enemy of done. Again, getting something that you can react to or others can react to is way more important than getting perfection. And trust me, it's going to allow you to keep moving with more value and more impact for for the problems that you're trying to solve. Um, you can once you have something that you can show folks, you can then iterate based on this feedback instead of just imagining what you think people will think about it, right? So a hard lesson for young product managers is thinking that we know what the customer wants, and often we don't exactly know what they want. It's our job to anticipate, and that makes us really good product managers. But the most effective product managers and product innovators are the ones that can create an idea, create a product, put it in front of the user, get feedback, and that creates a better product in the end. And the other thing that I'll say here for no one to stop is um, in some cases, it's better to stop with what you're building and start over fresh because it's so quickly to rebuild again with what you've learned instead of trying to fix something that maybe is now going circling around some sort of issue that the AI can't solve, and that you can solve it and it's just wasting your time. So I have often just killed that particular instance and just started over. And if you take what you've done already and you have some clarity from your mistakes or the experiences that weren't as good, your next product is going to be better and it's going to use less credits when you restart. All right, so those are just some high level tips. I think at this point we can open it up for questions about anything that I've talked about. So, what is vibe coding? When can it be used? What are the types of products? What is a product strategy mindset and why it's important? Or anything else that you have a question and want to talk about before we proceed to a break and then actually some hands-on experimentation. So, Yuli, you want to um,
Yes.
open it up here?
Thanks, Rafael. So if any of you have questions, please raise your hand. That way I know where you are to find you. But here's my question, Rafael. So uh, we've been building, applications for different startups, and a couple of them are my own. Um, I'm always tempted to do my own vibe coding, although I don't have much experience in that, versus just buying an off the shelf product and just plug it in and get going. What's the downside of these simple applications? Like appointments, right? Or let's say messaging back and forth. In what's the advantage unless you're building something very specific and very narrow? What is your take on that?
I would say that there's absolutely pros and cons. And so,
Okay.
like I mentioned earlier, one of the pros I think is that um, with some of the off-the-shelf products that you might buy, like any sort of SaaS product, there's going to be a subscription fee.
Yeah.
And typically, those subscription fees limit you to one of those things, one website, right, or one instance of something. um, with the way the vibe coding tools are set up, there's a subscription fee that uses credits. But those credits, once you learn how to use the tool effectively, can go a pretty long way. And so you're not going to, once you've built something, you're probably going to use a fair amount of credits to get it up and running and prove it and have it be functional for yourself or maybe for other stakeholders that you want to invite to use the tool. But then as you pay that subscription, it's equivalent to like a hosting fee. But you also have development credits and opportunity to build other things for that same amount. So I think that's one consideration is that it just for me it's like an innovation platform to pay a subscription fee that allows me to build multiple things and continue to build on. Either continue to iterate the one product that I'm on or build the second or the third or the fourth, and maybe all of them can generate some revenue or can solve problems for your business or for other folks. So that's one I think important point. just like with those subscription services, we are at the mercy of those providers. And so,
Mm,
right,
yeah.
can the provider go belly up or stop offering the service? That's a possibility. Some of these tools, the more sophisticated ones, I think make it easier to take what you've built in a vibe coding environment and move it over into something that you can host on your own or in another platform so that you don't completely lose what you've built in the vibe coding tool. So there is a little bit of a golden handcuff, um,
Yeah.
but but that exists with many SaaS tools that we use today.
Great. Great.
All right. Um, so like I said earlier, and I think we all know, AI uh, sometimes doesn't do exactly what we hope it will do. So this is an experiment. We're going to try a few things. The purpose is to show you some of the capabilities and some of the hands-on experience using some of the tools. I'm going to focus on one tool, which I believe is the most user-friendly and easiest to start with, and its capabilities. This is lovable, and so I'm not endorsing any of the tools. There are many tools out there. The ones that I happen to use are Lovable, Base 44, and Replit. And so some of you probably have heard that maybe kind of early on, vibe coding involved engineers using some of the LLM tools to create code for them, which is true. Um, that level of vibe coding wasn't sufficient enough for me as a non-engineer to be effective because with that approach, I would need to understand um, what to do with that, with these blocks of code, right, that an LLM would give me. And so the beauty of some of the vibe coding tools that exist today and that have evolved so rapidly in just like weeks, it's incredible to see the pace of innovation. I don't have to think about what happens behind the scenes, and I don't have to connect the dots that an engineer has to do. So an engineer has to set up an environment, has to know the code or how to generate the code. Even if they use an LLM to help generate blocks of code, that they have to then know how to connect it and what to do with it to create an environment that actually works. And so the vibe coding tools allow folks like us, non-engineering folks, to do some of this work and be pretty effective. So let me share my screen.
We can see your screen.
Okay,
We're seeing the lovable.dev/dash.
great. Okay, awesome. Move that here. Okay, so this happens to be the interface for lovable.dev. Um, I'll be sharing. Let's see, I can share some of those now. So you have them in the chat, and then they're also going to be in the digital health playbook that you're able to get access to by going to that QR link that I'll post again later. Um, and so I'll put these in the chat now. They are affiliate links to these tools, and so admittedly, I get credits. I get some credits, but you will get some extra credits as well by using the affiliate links. So if you care to experiment and try any of these tools, Lovable, Base 44, or Replit, you're free to use these and get a little bit of an extra bump in credits when you start. Okay, so this is Lovable, and um, they pretty much all look the same in terms of where sort of things are. Different buttons and controls are in slightly different places, but essentially this is the framework. And I like to start with Lovable, particularly with folks that haven't tried one of these tools before, because it's really pretty easy. The way the Lovable interface has been built, it was one of the first ones, and it's evolved really quickly. All the tools have some similarities. So I'm going to stick with one, I think, just so that we don't get confused between the controls. So before jumping in, if we think about the product development mindset again, I'd like us to take just a really quick creative exercise. All right. And so like imagine that um, imagine that there's a place where this problem, this pain point that you have seen time and time again in your practice, in the health system, as a patient, as a consumer, and think about how you might solve that problem and really eliminate that that huge pain point. And sort of like envision it in your head and be intentional about how it would work, what it would feel like to use this product that you've come up with, and how it's solving this pain point, and how it's maybe relieving some frustration, maybe accelerating the value of something, um, maybe bringing joy, um, maybe connecting the dots about something. So whatever it is, whatever you have envisioned in your head, if you came to the session today without an idea, you can do this as well. Just kind of think of something that's a real pain, and that you're going to take it upon yourself to solve that, right? Sort of think about that, and think about how good it is now to have delivered that into the market for patients or for other providers or for consumers, right? It's pretty cool. And so now there's a possibility that what you're thinking about might actually be commercially viable, and it can solve some of these real pain points. But at the very least, you're gonna start, you're gonna take an effort, and you're gonna begin to put yourself down this innovation journey, which is gonna lead to potentially other solutions that are better or easier, that you hadn't thought about before. So that's part of this mindset, is just to get into this creative sort of problem solving mode. Um, and so Jim Rohn, which is a very well respected um, leadership and management professional and coach, um, he advocated for, he believed very strongly in the fact that success leaves clues. And so I think the fact that you're here today is really awesome. Like you're here to experience something that you maybe didn't know enough about or a lot about, and you're investing your time to learn something new outside of maybe your clinical practice. And so I commend you for that. And I think that that's really exciting, that together we can create kind of a different future for healthcare. So along the product strategy mindset again, we talked about making sure that there's clarity around the problem. So in some of the workshops that I teach, we go through completing like a problem solution statement. We complete a product vision statement. And so there's some exercises around that. We also dive into our different personas, like I said, your ideal customer and what their life is like and what the pain is like, what their motivations are like. And then in healthcare, this doesn't apply as much outside of healthcare when I did my financial services work, but absolutely in healthcare, um, three other really important points. So one is thinking about, if your product um, does move forward, who's going to pay for it, right? In healthcare, that's a really critical issue that most startups that I talk to don't think about early enough. The second thing is, what about the data sources? So healthcare is notoriously lacking interoperability, right? many of our systems are not connected to each other, even within one organization. Really frustrating, not really effective. And so begin to think about where is the data for your solution, for your tool going to come from? Um, who's going to access it? And are there ways to work around it? Now, one of the good things when we're getting to more sophisticated AI systems is that with AI, sometimes AI is able to go out and get data in different places and in different formats, um, which is awesome. I think that's going to help us advance with our interoperability obstacles, but still making sure that you understand where that data is going to come from is important. And then the third item unique to healthcare is think about PII, right, and security requirements. So, like I said earlier, there are some platforms now and I'm happy to chat with you offline about what those are, that do create environments where you can build in very secure, robust, HIPAA compliant environments using vibe coding approaches. They're more expensive than some of these tools that I'm showing you today, but they are out there, and some organizations are really getting a lot of value by using some of those tools. So, but today for us, if when we do build something, let's focus on not using PII. And so again, we're focused on creating prototypes to validate our idea, or very early basic functional MVPs of products. And so just don't use PII, right? So use dummy data, artificial data. There are some public data sets for in healthcare that can be used that have been cleansed and can be used for this type of work. Okay, let's start. So the first thing that I talked about, what was the number one key recommendation that I had? Somebody remember? So it was around having clarity with the product requirements before jumping in and providing the tool or instructions, right? And so one of the things that I'd like to show you is my PR buddy. So I built this for myself. Um, and it's a tool that goes through some structured questions and then produces a PRD, a product requirements document at the end. So let's do it now. All right, so this is the output. Because I don't want to take a lot of time and sort of actually generate it, I'll tell you that I'll show you really quickly, and then we'll go back to the finished product. So it's basically, it interviews you and it asks you what your big idea is, who it's for, asks you to be specific about what the problem is. It asks you to identify at least 3 key features and a description of them. It asks you for ideas about look and feel. And so what I like to do is I like to add a website. So for instance, for this experiment that we're going to try, I use this Work It Health website. So I just did a screenshot of this and I add that along with my PRD document and I upload into Lovable. And then it also at the PRD builder also asks you for it asks you questions about access and security, and then some extra information. And this is kind of the framework. It gives you some tips, and then you can enter the answers to all the different questions. There's about 8 steps, and then at the end, it generates this PRD. So this is an example of a PRD document, and it's a very abbreviated short version that works sufficiently for a vibe coding tool like Lovable or Base44 or Replit. And so it takes what you've entered and really expands upon it with all the knowledge that it has from the internet and from engineering standards and practices. It sort of fills in the gaps from what you gave it and provides that additional broader context. So product overview, it added more information about the persona. I didn't add all this. It added more clarity around the problem statement. I had entered some features. It expanded on the features and sort of clarified the description so that the AI tool can better understand what I was getting at. Um, it expanded some user interface and design guidelines based on my example that I had dropped in the screenshot from. It took some standard user security elements that I didn't really know, all of this, but it entered that. There was a payment processing item, notifications and communications, some next steps and additional information. Okay, so I'm going to copy that to the clipboard for just to be quick, and we're going to just drop it in to Lovable. I'm going to take a screenshot. Let's see from, I'm going to add a screenshot here as well. It's loading. Screenshot from that website that I liked. And we're just going to start. So what it's doing now is I have it set to plan mode. And so plan mode conserves your credits. It's not using up all your credits. It's going out and designing how it's going to build your application. And it's going to give you a plan based on what you've told it, but then it's going to ask any additional questions that it might need. So what would you like to build first? So I'm going to say the full MVP. You could see that it's starting to work in the background. For the landing page design, should it be closely mirror the work at health style you shared? Yes, I would like to closely mirror it. And then it is starting to build now. Okay, so while it's starting to do its thing, one of the things that I asked it to do, that I use one of the other tools. So Claude, I use Claude a lot. So I use Claude to help me think of names. So let's see. Give me some branding ideas for my digital health application. And so I think the easiest thing is into Claude, drop in my PRD again. It's very useful. And see what Claude comes back. Now, Lovable is still building. Actually, it's asking me a question. Oh, it's giving me the plan, right? I'm going to approve the plan so it can continue building. And in the meantime, I'm doing multitasking here. So I'm back to Claude and it's giving me some branding ideas. So here's some product names. The Clinical Bridge. I don't like this one too much. The Steady Presence. The Recovery Companion. Right? And so one thing that I didn't mention is that here's a description of the product. We should talk about that description. So the description of the product was that it's a clinician companion portal designed to provide continuous support to psychotherapy patients between sessions. It features AI-supported guidance tailored to each clinician's therapeutic approach, a direct messaging system for non-urgent communications, and a hub for resource access and appointment scheduling. This platform aims to effectively bridge the support gap that patients often experience between therapy sessions, thus enhancing their recovery journey and overall well-being. So this is something that a clinician that I know, a psychotherapist, is actually interested in building. Okay. So back here, it gave me so I would use Claude maybe to come up with some of the names. So when I did this yesterday, it gave me that name of TheraLink Online, and that was one of the ones that I like for this demonstration. So this is just one way that I like to use one of the LLMs to help augment what I'm doing in the tool. All right, so it wants me to verify whether I want Lovable to build the backend, right? And so this creates databases. It allows me to create forms, to set up email. So I'm going to say yes, and then have it continue. All right. So this is one way that I use Claude or one of the LLMs to augment what I'm doing in the tool. All right. So the other thing that I did after I came up with that name was, and this sometimes is forgotten until the end. And so us product folks that maybe want to introduce a commercially viable product, one of the things that I like to do is check the names. And so I will have bullet list the brand names so I can drop into GoDaddy bulk domain search. Okay, so it'll do its thing. It should create a quick list. I'll just drop them into the bulk while it's doing those other things. Um, okay, I'll just drop them in. Ooh, a lot of names. Copy. I'll put them into that search. So that's going to be searching. Okay, it's come back. So some of those names are really good because the domain names are really expensive. Um, but let's see. Lot 30 were unavailable. Are there any of these? Okay, so Theralink HQ is only 22 bucks, and that's available. So that's kind of cool. Um, Theralink Care, right, is not taken. So that's also available for 22 bucks. Um, there's some premium names that are a little less expensive, but those are available also. So that's another way that I use this tool to help augment as I'm thinking about my new product or business idea. All right, let's see what's going on here with Lovable. It's still thinking, still building it. You can see that it generated an image already on its own. That looks to be an AI generated image. Sometimes you have the option to have it bring in some images, stock images from Unsplash, instead of generating something that is AI looking. It can actually do that, or you can upload your own images that you can source from another tool. All right. So I'll stop here while that's continuing to build and see if there are any questions so far.
Yes, I have one question.
Yes.
Can you talk about your own this what was your software that you were using?
So this one that I built, my PRD
My
buddy.
buddy? Yes.
Yeah. What was your question about it?
Oh, I just wanted to know more about this.
Oh,
If
okay.
you can. Yeah.
Sure. So at the end of the session, if you um, take the QR code or send me an email, I'm happy to have a conversation with you, maybe about your product, and I'm happy to share this as a resource for you, along with a digital health playbook that'll summarize some of what we talked about today and actually give you a lot more resources. It's part of what I cover in my workshops, but I'm going to be sharing with you that digital health innovation playbook and use of this tool if you'd like as well.
Okay, thank you. And then have you connected this with the Claude or how I saw that or you are just adding the website and then asking the Claude when you go
Connected
to
it with
Claude?
connected with cloud. Okay, so what I mentioned earlier is that because I'm not an engineer,
Uh-huh.
for me, it was not effective enough to use an LLM like Claude to just generate blocks of code and then put it together, right? But what I'm doing is I'm using a tool like Lovable or Base 44 or Replit, and then using Claude as my design companion, right? And so what I can do is I can say mock up um, the here, we'll say mock up the Theralink Online website. And so in Claude, Claude is a way better designer than I am. Now, some of you might be really great designers. For my entire career, have been an okay designer. I always go and find a really great UI and visual designer that can really bring my vision for the product and the experience to life. Um, Claude does fairly good job of doing something kind of basic. And so we'll see what it does here. And so what I asked it to do is to mock up the website.
Okay.
We'll see what it does. See what it does. But right now, I just gave Lovable some initial instructions, right? And now it's running and doing some of that build behind the scenes.
Yeah, and also, like the Lovable you have is subscribed version, right?
Yes, that is correct. Yep, I subscribe to Lovable, and because I'm doing these workshops and doing a lot of these demos, I subscribe to multiple. Typically, you don't have to, right? So kind of pick one and experiment with it and see how it works for you. What I like to tell people is that I recommend there's a lot of different tools. The one that I use for really basic, quick things that can create a beautiful interface pretty quickly is Lovable. It's really great at that. Um, Base 44 is kind of a step above that in terms of capabilities and functionality. And then Replit is much more sophisticated applications. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So let's see. All right. So here it's built. It's built the product so far. I'm going to skip through this error because we don't have time to sort of fix it. But I just want to show you some quick things. So here, like if I want to change this, always there to support you and your family. That's kind of a quick way to change some copy there. Um, I can test tablet, I can test mobile, right? I can publish. It will publish to a name that it made up, but I can change it. Or I can add a custom domain, and then it will instruct you how to change the DNS settings for that domain so that your page will actually show under that domain. And so let's see how far it's been able to do. Join now. It's created the authentication screen. There's an easy way I can just tell it to add Google authentication, and it will also add Google capability for login. Um, it built the landing page for me, describing some of the features, how it works. Start your journey takes me there. That's kind of clever. What else? Um, it came up with placeholder information for phone lines and other support areas. So this is just a really quick example of what's possible to build something, with just a few minutes and a few clicks. Now, again, we're not going to be using PII for this, but I can immediately now go show this to a patient or some partners or a potential investor and say, what do you think of this? Does this begin to solve a problem that you have, or does this look like it's viable? And so I'm not a clinician, so I don't do kind of more of the clinical decision support uh, applications or builds, but you can, right? As long as you're using data that is cleansed, you can actually build, some of those. So I do have some tools that I built that have graphs, or doing assessments and then coming up with a score, and some beautiful reports. Um, uh, I think
Um,
the opportunities are pretty endless. Go ahead.
could you, for sources of realistic synthetic data or something, a lot of them are sort of only available for research. So could you tell us which things are available for, demoing commercial things?
Yeah, I'm happy to chat with you offline about
Okay.
that,
Okay.
because there are some. The other thing that you can do just for really sort of simple demonstrations, uh, is to use one of the LLM tools to help
Mhm.
create those databases for
Yeah.
you. I've done that, and
Yeah.
that works really well, and it's completely safe, right?
Okay. Yeah.
All right, so here is what, going back to Claude now, because I use them often in tandem. This is some inspiration from Claude in terms of how Claude thinks they would build an application like this. And
Rafael,
so,
time check.
yeah, that's right. We got a couple minutes. All right. So thank you for your time and your interest today. I think uh, leadership coaches, there's this concept of seasonality. And I think at this period in time, we're in this sort of season of winter with spring is coming. And so for me, I like to advocate for jumping into AI, jumping into using some of these tools, and experimenting because we want to be on that AI bus and understand what's possible. And it's possible that we might be able to create something that really improves the healthcare system overall. So I hope this was useful to you. I'm going to go back and share this screen. Feel free to take a picture of that QR code or send me an email, and I'm happy to share the Digital Health Innovation Playbook and have a conversation with you. I'm really excited to speak and learn more about any of the ideas that you might have. Happy to chat with you for 30 minutes, no obligation, and give you some ideas or maybe help you on that path forward for your journey. Thank you.
I will be definitely taking that offer.